I started thinking, I'm like, why are probably some of the wisest men who ever lived, why did they repeatedly say that they're still learning or they know nothing? I'm like, it can't just be they're trying to be modest. There has to be a deeper reason. There has to be a deeper meaning.
Welcome back to the Lucas Skrobot Show. I'm Lucas Skrobot, and this is where we uncover purpose, pursue truth, and own the future. We are in part 2 of a 2-part interview episode with Mustafa Abbas, who is just, a man's man, a hero of my men, a deep well of wisdom. We have been just talking from his accomplishments in film to businesses that he started, and now we're getting into the deep stuff that I really love talking about, which is we've been talking about God and fate, fatalism, our responsibility. Mustafa, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. I'm honored by your words and for having me. Thank you very much.
Now, I said at the end of the last episode that I feel in so many ways cheated by every other interview that you have been on, because when I look through your Instagram, time and time again, I see that you are interested in philosophy. And I wanted to take a minute and talk about your hero. It seems like it's not just a flippant hero. It's not just today on Instagram, I really like this author, but it seems like it's someone that has had a profound impact on your life. So tell us, spill the beans. Who is your hero?
Very easy. And I would rather you say it, to be honest.
No. I want it to come from your mouth.
My favorite philosopher is Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Why? What about his writings, and when did his writings really kind of grab hold of you?
Look, it wasn't 1 or 2 or 3 quotes. It was took a few years actually until I kept reading different quotes, different ideas he had, until I formed this opinion of this man who I believe understood the way of the world, understood human nature, understood relationships, understood marriage, understood friendship, understood his relationship with God. This is what I genuinely believe, that this man saw that, okay, this world, this existence, it has a formula. And I think this human being understood that formula and shared whatever he learned with us in a very genuine manner, not for followers or likes, So that to me is what it means to make the world a better place.
And I think in many ways, after finding that out, I began to see in different things that you do, whether it's in your film or in your business, or the way that the philosophy that you walk out life, I can see that his philosophy is really reflected in many things that you do. Here is one of Emerson's quote. He said, "It's not the length, but the depth of life. It's not the length, but the depth of life." And you have said, I don't want to create 100 films. I want to create 10 really deep feature films, 10 pieces of art that is meaningful. It's not the length, but the depth. Another thing, here's a quote. This is actually a quote by you, but it could have been a quote by Emerson. I don't know. It says, "If you break the law, you will pay the price. And many don't realize that the universe has laws too." And that really reflects a lot of Emerson's writing and talking about rugged individualism, talking about how that society wants to put us into this conforming box. Society wants us to conform to the status quo, but it's a man who walks in truth and integrity and honesty and has the strength to think what you think, in spite of what the world around them thinks. That is something that is rare, and yet that is something that I see you walking out on a daily basis through your films, something that you're aspiring to through your businesses. So can you unpack some of that process that you have gone on from, I'm sure, in adolescence, just holding on to what everyone else thought to the place where you're saying, you know what, I'm going to search it out for myself, and I'm going to walk out my individual identity in the midst of a culture that is really communal.
Well, again, it goes back to being completely, as you said, true and honest with yourself. And the more you know about yourself, the more you can improve. The more you learn about yourself, the more you can improve. The more you learn about your business, the more you can improve your business. The more you learn about the dynamics of the relationship you're in, the more you can improve the relationship. First of all, nobody has it easy, right? Nobody has it easy. So it's up to you to, rewire the brain or relearn the lesson, or, unscrew yourself, as they say. There's another Greek philosopher that I'm a big fan of, very, very big fan of. His name is Epictetus. And he said, I might be paraphrasing here, but he said something like, it is impossible for a man to learn which he thinks he already knows.
Oof. Say that again. Like, say that again. Say it again.
Okay. All right. Again, I'm hoping the words are accurate, but I'm pretty sure that the meaning is the same. It is impossible for a man to learn which he thinks he already knows, something which he thinks he already knows.
Such a good word.
And it's very interesting because smart people always want to learn. They always want to listen to you. They always want to learn. They always want to hear what you have to say. And this is something that, Lucas, something that makes you very intelligent. You want to listen. You want to learn. You want to grow. That's why you're a smart man.
Thank you.
Because you want to continue growing. You want to continue learning. Whereas a person who doesn't have that level of intelligence, they'll have more ego. You see, that's why wisdom is connected to intelligence. You can be intelligent and not be nice. It's possible. You can be nice and not be smart. Also possible. But you cannot be wise and not be kind. Impossible.
Wow.
Right? So when you meet someone who has what we call a fixed mindset, they tell you, don't teach me. I know already. I don't need to learn. Don't teach me. But the wise man knows that, one, you'll never be wise. The wise man knows that he or she will never be wise. And they know that there is something to be learned from everyone, even if that lesson is what not to do, how not to be, how not to behave. There's something to be learned from everyone. And if you don't, you'll miss one or two of those lessons we talked about.
Absolutely. I mean, the beginning of wisdom is get wisdom, right? The beginning of wisdom is like, get wisdom. Do not have a stiff neck. Otherwise, don't be stubborn in your ways. Otherwise, you're going to come and you're going to smack against that wall and it's going to be painful. I love that bit about humility. Like, we need to walk in humility, because it's that humility that enables us to receive wisdom, not only from this conversation with you, but from God, right? It goes back to the last part of our conversation, where there's so many people who are going through life. God is giving them signs and they're literally plowing through the signs without even tapping their brakes, just like literally going through road barriers and roadblocks and experiencing so much pain. And then, as you said, they're saying, why does this always happen to me? Why does, and they don't realize that maybe God is giving them a sign right now to wake up in their life and do something about it. And I think that is this huge. If you think that you know something, well, that's the moment that you've just lost it. The moment that you think that you've arrived. What are some of the other things of Emerson that really, really stuck into you?
Well, going back to other people who said things, other philosophers, other writers, I saw this pattern in many of them, right? Like one thing which Epictetus said, and then you had, I think it was Aristotle. He said something very similar. I can only know that I know nothing. And then you had Leo Tolstoy, right? Russian writer. Let me get this right. He said something like, we can only know that we know nothing. And that is the highest degree of human wisdom. So when I saw all these giants saying these things, and you had Michelangelo at age 88 saying, I am still learning. When you had all these, I started thinking, I'm like, why are these probably some of the wisest men who ever lived, why did they repeatedly say that they're still learning or they know nothing? I'm like, it can't just be they're trying to be modest. There has to be a deeper reason. There has to be a deeper meaning to why they're continuously saying that. And then, in my opinion, I saw that the less you think you know, the more you learn. And that's why they learned so much. That's why they know so much, is because they kept telling themselves, I will never master it. I'll never be the expert. But it's important to not say that to yourself in a negative way.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not judging yourself. You're not angry at yourself. You're saying it because you love learning. And that's the power of intention.
Yeah, it seems like, just even now, as I'm reflecting on some of these quotes and how you put it in the context of, it's not that they're actually saying that they know nothing, but they realize that the amount that they know is nothing in comparison to the vastness of God and the galaxies and the knowledge that there is in the world. And I think, and I don't necessarily think you're saying this. This is more kind of my reflection from a lot of conversations that I've had with others, and just conversations right now in the world. A lot of people will take those sayings to mean that there is no truth, that truth is not knowable. There is no such thing as absolute truth, which is a contradiction in and of itself. If you say there is no truth, well, you just made an absolute truth statement, and therefore you just self-contradict yourself. So clearly there is truth, but it's not black and white and static, but it's living and breathing. It doesn't change. It's unchanging, but it's alive. And I think part of that is these men, they're not saying there is no truth. Everything's just relative, whatever you feel like you should do, that's good for you. Like, just as long as it doesn't impact me. It's like, I don't think that's what they're saying, but I think the way you articulated it, it's so beautiful and so right in that they're saying, oh my goodness, the more that I come to know and learn, the wiser that I become, the more childlike I become, the more that I realize that there's so much to learn and I don't know it. In my finite humanness, how can I ever lift up my gaze and attain to the infinitiness, the infiniteness? I can't even speak of God, right? Like, how can I? I'm an infinite. I'm a finite being. How can I attain what the infinite has? And I think that's just a beautiful way to live life. One, because it's a place of humility, but two, it puts you in that place of surrender. It puts you in this place of dependency on God, as you've talked about, how it's the grace of God on your life, how there is fate, and that we're not necessarily always the masters of our own ship, but we have a shepherd who takes care of us. We have a God that watches over us and cares for us and leads us and guides us and gives us signs and answers our prayers. And I think that is something that I rest in. The more that I realize that I'm actually just know nothing and am powerless, but there is one who is all powerful, who's watching over me. That is where I find that place of rest and peace in my life.
Beautiful.
Well,
amazingly said.
Well, I'm just, you brought me to say it. So, I mean, just the way that you put those things together, it just really clicked something in
I think,
my heart.
I think when the more they said stuff like that, the more room was created for knowledge.
Yes.
And because it was so genuine, and you can see it was so genuine. It wasn't like, what's going on in this day and age about a lot of these, new age philosophers coming out, and, some of them are wonderful, but others are just, what they're in for. That's what I mean. You you can see the intention. You can see what they're all about.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are very genuine, and a lot of them not so much. But that's life, It's like that. Quantity versus quality. It's always the case.
Quality versus quantity, margin, space, stillness, humility. Now your next film, I know you're working. I've heard rumors that you're working on another film. Are you planning on incorporating kind of a lot of these? You already have incorporated in your past shorts, but are you working towards a feature-length film, and are you going to be tying in a lot of kind of those memento kind of philosophical layerings in it?
I mean, look, the most important thing is to be true to the story. That's the most important thing. In the writing, in the casting, in the filming, you don't want to do something for the sake of doing it. So if that fits, absolutely. If that doesn't fit, make sure not to force fit it.
What's the story?
The next one, well, so the funny thing is I've already written all my scripts, right? Years and years ago. Most of them, The Long Game, which we recently made, was probably one of the last scripts I wrote, which was in 2016, right? So most of my feature films, most of them I've written. So the next one's going to be in Arabic. It's a psychological thriller, and it's quite dark and quite mysterious, and for the thinking person.
When can we expect it?
Well, we'll see. We'll see, because with the pandemic kind of delayed everything. But as we said earlier, every delay is a blessing.
Yes, it is.
So let's see how that plays out, and it's exciting. It's very exciting because it's going to be in Arabic, so that's going to be very exciting.
Oh yeah,
I'm
very excited for it. Where can people find you? Not just on the interwebs, but in person in Dubai. Where can people find you?
They can find me. Well, I know one more place they can find me online now. It's a Lucas Skrobot show. They can find me there.
Good answer.
Yeah. But I would love your opinion. First of all, thank you for taking the time and watching Sunset State and The Long Game.
Yes.
I do want to hear your opinion of the similarities, if you saw any, between those two films, or the differences, or any comparison you may have
between Sunset State
and The Long Game. Yeah,
I saw in both. I saw there were two storylines that intersected and intertwined. Both had a very similar mood and feel to them. Of course, Long Game had both had some dark aspects. Long Game was kind of more geared towards had more crime and violence in it, whereas Sunset State really dealt with some kind of deeper emotional, topics, even suicide. Some moving kind of scenes in there that was really graphic. Not graphic in a negative kind of graphic way, but the way that you displayed his emotions. I forgot the character's name, but it just felt real. Him seeing his mother pass as a young child, his father pass, and then him just at the brink, at the edge. That felt really genuine. And then as that contrasted with The Long Game, I feel like the mood and your use of space and silence, I felt like that really interplayed. And then also dealing with loss, dealing with death, and how do people then react in the face of having lost something and wanting something. And so I think you in both of those films really teased out those themes in a really unique way, especially with bringing those two storylines together and essentially, two people walking into each other and what happens.
Thank you. Very, very nicely described. You clearly paid a lot of attention to both films. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking the time and watching them.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be your answer? What would be the right answer that question. What were, from the Sunset State compared to the long game, what were some of those things that you were teasing out in both and hope the audience would see?
Well, the interesting thing is, since I was a kid, the type of movies that we were always interested in making, it was always the crime genre, right? There was always a crime, criminals, always that kind of, So in many ways, Sunset State was a bit, I'm not going to say experimental, but kind of new, So then I'm like, and it's important for you to know what you can do and what you can't do. But at the same time, you also need to try different things. So you need to find your own unique balance within those two things, what not to do, what to try. And without being swayed, unless you have this passion to do so. So Sunset State was, for me, the first of its kind that I've made. So I call it my type B movie or type 2, whereas type A is the dark, shadowy crime film, and Sunset State is also dark, but it's more like closer to
more of a melodrama,
to a different genre, away from the crime genre.
Yeah,
different mood, different vibe.
Yeah.
So what inspired me to make The Long Game was, I was like, what if I make this movie with this mood? That kind of gave me that spark. Like, interesting. Even the working title wasn't The Long Game. That came with
what was your working title?
And redrafting. I think we'll stick to The Long Game for now, because I think it really goes with the film.
Yeah,
it really goes with. And if you look at the title and you look at the characters, it applies to every single character in the movie. And with The Long Game, what I was very grateful for is that the thinking person enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The person who wanted to sit and dissect and understand, they enjoyed it. And a person who didn't want to think so much and just saw a cool crime thriller also enjoyed it. Now, that's not necessarily something you can plan. You know what I mean? And there's some things that while you're filming, it just happens and you're like, that's so interesting. How did that happen? When you have all that passion and you create something, things just happen. For example, you'll notice that it's a sunny sunset type of film, and then it gets darker. But bear in mind, it's a daytime movie. Most of the scenes are in morning.
Yep.
But it does, the last 10, 15 minutes get dark. And there's a lot of things that happen by themselves. It's very interesting. So yeah, that's what kind of gave it the spark. But the movie has a lot of, there's a lot of karma in the movie. If you pay attention to some of the weapons and how they go from this person to that person, or some of the locations and how things, people or subjects are moved back into certain locations, then you'll see like, okay, this is what happened to this person and now it's happening to that person.
Yeah, it was very much
but maybe
you'll reap what you sow kind of going on. What goes around comes around. It was very much a what goes around comes around.
Yeah, but I like to believe not in a very obvious way. It's there for those who want to notice it.
Totally. It was subtly written in it. When are you planning on coming full out with the film so that the average person can actually get their fingers on it?
Well, I think when this pandemic ends, inshallah, and everyone is safe and sound, we definitely need to do some kind of screening. Now, it will not be a public screening. It will be a private screening because it's still doing its rounds. It's still going to, festivals and stuff. And you need to give that at least 1 year before it's open to the public or posted online. So we definitely need to do this. And I'm guessing it would be sometime early, mid next year. You would have to have a screening.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we're looking forward to that. Hopefully it's a really big screening. That's private but open to thousands because what better way to screen it?
Yeah.
And where can people find just your Chivalry 35 Burgundy? Where can people find all of your stuff?
Well, with Bang & Olufsen, our stores in Dubai Mall. It's in the Fashion Avenue of Dubai Mall. Chivalry Salon is located in South Ridge 1 in downtown Dubai. and Aficionados, which is the PR agency we founded earlier this year. We founded that to support local businesses, homegrown brands, anyone basically who started a business in Dubai needs some help. So that, of course, we operated out of the head office, which is Legend Group office. We're located in Prime Tower in Business Bay. And 35 Burgundy it's an exclusive brand, and it's got its own little trick to it. So sometimes what we do is we have our clientele, and then we add new clients to that list, and it's got its own little formula.
I love it.
That's it doesn't have a store as of yet. We don't know yet if we're going to do one. But I think we created something very special with 35 Burgundy, and it has yet to see its day. I think yet to kind of get that kind of spotlight. Even though we're very grateful for the clients we already have, as I said, they're very exclusive. But let's see. I feel like there's more to it. Going back to it's like writing. You're still listening. You're still trying to understand. So it's exciting.
Still maturing. Well, all of those links will be in the show note. Legend Group, you guys just put up a new website today. So, mashallah. So all those links to you, your content, your film, your Instagram will all be in the show notes for the Sunset State. Amazing. And so thank you so much for your time. Just really, really pleasurable conversation.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you for having me. A wonderful conversation. Well worth the wait.
Yes.
Took some time, but I'm very grateful for it. And thank you for your time, and thank you for your wisdom.
Well, inshallah, we will see you soon as this COVID thing goes away.
Inshallah. Looking forward to it. Stay safe.
Talk to you soon. That is all for our conversation with Mustafa Abbas. And man, what a conversation. We went so deep. And if you listen to this podcast at all, you know that we love to go deep on the show. There's multiple things that we hit. The first thing that we hit was story and story structure. And story structure is so important. We didn't get into the nitty-gritty of story structure, but the thing that I want to highlight here is that oftentimes new writers or new creatives, they want to throw the structure out of the window. They want to say, I don't need that structure stuff. I'm going to be creative. I'm going to find my new way. I'm going to do it differently. And inevitably, they run into a lot of problems right off the bat. And oftentimes we do that in our personal lives. We do that in our business. We say, I know that these are all the sound models. I know that these are all the sound disciplines. I know that this is the way that I should order my life. This is the way that I should eat. This is the way that I should work out. This is the way that I should search for wisdom and input and knowledge. But I'm going to be creative. I'm going to throw story structure. I'm going to throw discipline to the wayside because I want my freedom. And that's what so much of this generation is looking for. We are looking for freedom. We're looking for the sense of freedom. But freedom does not come from being boundaryless. Freedom does not come from doing whatever you want and doing whatever makes you feel good. Freedom comes from knowing the restraints, knowing the boundary lines, knowing the structure that is going to serve our lives, knowing the structure that's going to serve a script. Like Abbas said, knowing the structure, knowing that every page is 1 minute of film. Well, okay, so now that we know some structure, if we want to create a 30-minute film, we need 30 pages of script. These are just simple metaphors that can apply to our lives. Knowing the things that we want to do with our lives. Knowing the disciplines that would be required of us to reach that, whether it's in our health, whether that's in our finances, knowing that we need to spend less than we earn, knowing that we need to work out more Then we sit on the couch and consume calories, empty calories. Simple things, simple boundary lines. For me, I'm embarrassed to admit it. I'm not a super morning person. I'm not the person that, 4 a.m. comes and I've already been up for an hour making coffee and doing whatever morning people do. I'm not a morning person, but I'm at a point in my life where I'm feeling this acute pain, if you will, of saying there are things that I want to achieve in my life, things that I want to achieve through the show, books that I want to write, ideas that I want to cultivate and explore. If I am going to do that, then if that's the structure that if that's the film I want to create, if I want to create that 30-minute film with my life, then what is the structure that I need to put into that on the front end in preparation, in work, so that I will actually be able to achieve that 30-minute film? Well, part of that has been for me of saying, you know what, I'm going to go to bed actually kind of annoyingly early, going to bed at 9:30. I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy that at all. But I'm recognizing, and maybe this is really late in life, and maybe this is like a no duh, like, where have you been? Hello, Earth to Lucas. But recognizing, okay, I need to put these boundary lines in place. I need to become tighter in my schedule, more disciplined and more boundaried in my schedule if I want to achieve these things. This is what's required of me. And that's the first point that I think is really applicable to us from this conversation of realizing there are, as Mustafa has said, there are laws in nature. And if you break the laws, you will pay the cost. And it's not just from the government. It's a cause and effect of nature. And once we accept that, once we embrace that, and once we say, you know what, I actually do want freedom, I do want to feel freedom, and the way to do that is by living disciplined. If we chase freedom, we are going to end up in nihilism and depression and listing through life. But if we anchor our life in sound wisdom and discipline, those boundary lines gives us a focused energy to be able to create a rich life. And I'm not talking about finances, but I'm talking about having a rich marriage, having a rich relationship with our children, having a rich well of joy and knowledge and wisdom that we can pull from, endurance and perseverance and grit that we can pull from. That all requires discipline. And that discipline is what will launch us into that place of freedom. The second point that I really loved is when we got into talking about philosophy, Mustafa's ideas and philosophy about God and luck and skill, fate versus our free will. I loved a lot of his articulation there. And it really struck a chord with me and we talk about that all the time on the show, that, God has written in the stars. Where's that sticker? Here's the sticker. God has written in the stars our destiny. When we would be born, where we would live, the times and places that we should live. He's written it in the stars. But we have a responsibility to weave that with our daily choices. That there is a relationship, a co-laboring, an empowerment from God and a grace from the divine on our life. And then we have to live and walk it out. We have to make decisions to put those disciplines into our life. We have to make those decisions when God speaks to us and gives us signs. We have to respond. Otherwise, as Mustafa said, we are going to end up saying, well, why me? Why does this always happen to me? And we're going to begin to play the victim. And then, as he also said, if we think that it's all about us, that it's always me that's the problem, most of the time it is. But if we become hard on ourselves and we think that it is all us, then we become prideful and arrogant, and we become self-deprecating martyrs. And you don't want that either. But there is this tension between the two of realizing that there is divine appointments, divine signs. Fate is involved in each and every one of our lives, whether we know it, whether we believe it or not. As Mustafa said, it is every person. There is a grace of God on every person and a fate on every person's life. And at the same time, we have to step into it. And there is an ability to step into that because, as Mustafa said, like, God is giving us signs and we need to respond to those. I just loved that. And then when we got into talking about, in the second part of the interview, about Emerson and talking about some of his ideas of living a deep life, not just a long life, not just a busy life, but a deep life. That is something that I have been increasingly focusing on, even in this podcast, in my writing, in my study, in the work that I do. I am coming back time and time again to this question of saying, how can I live a deep life? How can I, in this podcast, how can I create a deep piece of information, a deep piece of content for you so that you can draw from my well, right? So that you can draw from this conversation, from these experiences, from these writings, from this knowledge. How can I create something that's deep and valuable and meaningful, not just quick, fast, and noisy? Because there's a lot of quick, fast, and noisy in the world, but there is very little deep, meaningful, and hard work to pull out deep, ancient wisdom and riches. And that word wisdom reminds me of the very last thing that we talked about, which was that the more that we know, the less that we realize we actually know. That the realm of the infinite is so vast that once we begin to realize how little we actually know, it really is nothing. And once we come to that place, not of saying, well, there is no truth and truth is not knowable. You know me, you know the show, you know what we are about, what this tribe is about pursuing truth, pursuing it, not saying I have the corner on truth and I have it all figured out. We're not saying that we have the corner on truth or that we have it all figured out, but we're saying that we are ordering our lives in the pursuit of truth, in the pursuit of wisdom, in the pursuit of uncovering our purpose so that we can walk it out in our lives, not so that we can tell someone else what to do or how to live, but so that you and I can take responsibility for our life and actually own and shape our futures and the futures of those that we are responsible for. Those that have been placed around us, our sphere of influence, to be a kind and wise and loving person to those around us, to be a well to those around us. And that's what I want for my life. I want my life to be a well for other people. So I hope this interview encouraged you. This has been just a fantastic interview. I loved the conversation. It just felt, in so many ways, so rich, just so rich to me. And I hope it felt that way for you too. I would love to hear any questions that you have from this episode or any other episode. If you have a question, please WhatsApp me at +1 202 922 0220. And if you ask a question and it gets played on the show, I will send you some stickers. And we got a bunch of stickers, and I would be more than happy to say thank you for being part of this community, to send you a bunch of awesome stickers that all tell stories by which we can remember values and principles by which you and I desire to live and order our lives around. And that is one thing Mustafa also said, is when you're going in business, when you're going after something in your life, do not let go of your values. And that is why I made these stickers, so I can put them up and remember and not let go of values that I've said, these values are important. These stories are important to remember. So please, you can either get some stickers or ask a question and win some stickers. That's all for this episode. Remember, you are a truth seeker who uncovers purpose. So go out and own your future.